Welcome to our module called Avoiding Plagiarism. In today's video, I want to cover some basic guidelines on how to avoid plagiarism in your academic and professional writing. Number one guideline to avoid plagiarism is to carefully document where your information and ideas are coming from. And we do that by citing, adding in-text citations in APA style throughout the text, showing where the information and the ideas we're working with in our writing come from. Second guideline is to make sure that you put expressions and phrases you've taken from an original source and you quote them. You put them in quotation marks, those little things around a phrase or a passage. Third guideline, better yet than putting everything in quotation marks, which only makes you end up having a whole collection of quotes by somebody else. Better yet, try to paraphrase as much of the original material in your own words. And the other video in this module on avoiding plagiarism covers in greater detail on how to successfully paraphrase and how to do that well. So in this video, I want to show you a few more examples of the importance of carefully documenting your information and making sure that you quote when you need to quote. So let's look at an example together. The top part of this slide contains a directly quoted passage from a book by J. Lester on writing research papers, and the bottom box contains an attempted paraphrase. So take a moment to review both of these and hit the pause button. You probably have noticed a few issues with it. So let's look at it together. First of all, I want to point out what is done well here. So one thing that the author here does well is that the author attributes the original source. Right, there is a citation here. So remember that the first guideline is to always carefully document where your ideas are coming from. And the author of this passage actually is doing that by adding an in-text citation. But that's really where the following of our guidelines ends. Because when you look very closely at the original passage and the paraphrase passage, we find some troubling parallels. And I'm going to highlight here with you all the different words that are the exact same as compared to the original passage. Students, direct quotations, notes, final research paper, probably only about 10% off, final, directly quoted material, limit the amount of, while taking notes. Oh, and source material as well. So this is troubling because whatever is in green here should be in quotation marks, because what the writer of the paraphrase is essentially doing is just taking the original sentence and changing a couple of passages here and there. So in addition to keeping a lot of the original phrasing intact, this writer is also just replacing some of the phrasing by very similar expressions. So let's look at those again as well. I'm going to underline those in red. So frequently overuse in the original becomes often used too many. In taking becomes when they take. As a result becomes resulting in. Let's see, in the second sentence, manuscript, should appear as becomes should consist of. You should strive to becomes it is important to. Transcribing somehow ends up copied in the paraphrase. So when we look now again at the paraphrased passage, not only are there a good number of expressions that are taken verbatim from the original, the rest of the passage is also not well paraphrased, partially because the whole sentence structure is intact, and all the paraphraser here, the writer, has done is replaced certain expressions with similar expressions or synonyms, and that's troubling. So to sum up, despite the citation at the end, the attribution of the source, which is good, the rest of this not good. So this is an example of what I call patchwork or mosaic plagiarism. So the way out of it would be to completely rephrase the original passage and paraphrase it properly. And that's what the second video in this tutorial, in this module, will walk you through. Or to make sure that you integrate some more of the direct quotes into a better sentence structure, and then directly quote and make sure you put quotation marks around them, like I'm doing right here. Okay, so I want to show you another example of how plagiarism can really hinder your reader's understanding. So here is a passage that I want you to take a pause. So hit the pause button and read over this, and then I'm going to walk you through this one. If you had trouble really following the writer's argument or idea, you're not alone. It's quite deliberate, because if you look at what is taken verbatim from original sources, 90-some% of this passage are not the author's or the writer's original words. Everything in green comes from one source, everything in blue comes from another. This is an example of really egregious plagiarism. And on top of that, it hinders your reader's understanding. So when you use Safe Assign in your courses, this would be something that Safe Assign will probably pick up and highlight for you, or you highlight for your instructor. So make sure that when you're working with your source material and integrate it into your own writing, you sufficiently paraphrase it, or you put quotation marks around it. But putting quotation marks around this particular passage here, which I'm going to attempt doing right here, right? It would be a quotation mark here and here and here and then again here. You have a paragraph that practically isn't written by you. It's just taking from somebody else. And again, it doesn't increase the readability. It doesn't make it easier to understand. So the best solution is to completely paraphrase, which I have done in this next slide. So hit the pause button again and take a moment to read over this. You're probably realizing that the writer here finally has done a lot more work for us as a reader to take us through his or her argument. There's a topic sentence here at the beginning that kind of clearly points out what this passage will be about, and then some support from the different sources to support this argument. So we have a direct quote right here, properly marked with quotation marks, and then the attribution or citation right here with the title of the article, the year, and then paragraph number in this case, or page number if it's a paginated article. We have another attribution right here, or citation, another citation here, another one right here, and then again another direct quotation properly marked with quotation marks, making this a paragraph that's much easier to understand than its predecessor that was blatantly plagiarized. You might have still a question: when do you have to follow the rules of ethical attribution? Like, which texts that you produce need to follow these rules? Well, all of them. All forms of academic and professional communication should follow the rules of ethical attribution. Now, in academic settings, you often use the APA manual to guide you how to cite, do the in-text citations reference manual, and we've included a lot of videos from our writing center in one of the modules in this tutorial as well for you to review in the next module. So make sure you check those out. But in general, anything that you write, be it coursework, discussion forum entries, very important, patient notes, emails, reports, etc., make sure you attribute and clearly cite and document where your ideas are coming from.